After the much-anticipated debut of UFC on Paramount+, we follow up the action with another stacked fight weekend for UFC 325. The main card features Alexander Volkanovski against Diego Lopez in a rematch for the featherweight title between two former two-time champs. But today we're taking your attention to the co-main event, where we will see a matchup of top 10 ranked UFC lightweights in Dan Hooker and Benoit Saint-Denis. UFC 325 streaming on Paramount Plus live from Australia this weekend, so we're taking the show overseas. He is one of the busiest men in the biz, but never too busy for us here at CBS Sports HQ. Our friend Brian Campbell joining us here to set the stage. BC, we're continuing our UFC fighter profile series today, so we're going to take a closer look at Dan Hooker in the co-main event there. When I was looking through the notes here, the biggest thing that stood out to me was his experience, at least in this upcoming matchup here. He has fought in nearly twice as many fights as his upcoming opponent in Benoit Saint-Denis. He's got the 5th most knockdown landed among active UFC lightweights. What is it about his style, this pressure cooker style of fighting, that makes him so effective?
It's fun, right? It's entertaining. It's incredible. And if you're not prepared to stand up to the heat of what the hangman Dan Hooker brings to the table, well, you're going to end up looking up at the lights on the wrong end of it. Look, let's give Dan Hooker a lot of credit. Despite utilizing a style that doesn't seem like it should be one that will last a long time, because he heads headfirst into oncoming traffic and never backs away, loves to make big action fights. We're not talking about a 35-year-old veteran of nearly 12 years in the UFC. Dan Hooker debuted back in 2014. He was the first member of the vaunted City Kickboxing Gym out of New Zealand that would go on to come into the UFC, and in a lot of ways revolutionize the way that striking is done at the highest level with his teammates like Alexander Volkanovski and Israel Adesanya. Yet Hooker is still standing among the elites at lightweight all these years later, despite being in so many big-time wars with big-time names. Who can forget, of course, his 5-round classic with Dustin Poirier back in 2020. He's fought a who's who in this division. He's had some wins, he's had some losses, he's had some bounce backs, but I think the recurring thing here is he's long, he's got a great jab, he's not afraid to get into the fire, and it doesn't matter if he's overmatched on paper or not. He's going to go for the knockout every single time out. And when you're dealing with somebody with a great chin, great durability, that means for a long night at the office.
Yeah, looking at his statistics here, 11 knockouts, TKOs, and he's from New Zealand, so this fight for him going to be right in his backyard. I kind of want to get a little bit more into sort of his fighting style here. You call him the Hangman, that's his nickname because of the aggressive fighting style. But something else you mentioned there, BC, you said at some point people think it'll wear off, but it doesn't. He always seems to find this Iron Man sort of quality about him. How is he able to have that motor, and what will be the key to his victory in this fight?
It's incredible. His fighting spirit is never diminished. He can package a couple of losses against elite competition. You can begin to believe that maybe he's an aging action fighter on the way out, and then he does what he does, just like in recent years when he ran off a 3-fight win streak, defeating back-to-back top contenders in Jalen Turner and Mateusz Gamrot. Dan Hooker's style is obviously built upon pressure, but he's tall, long, lean, he can kick, he can punch. There is all offense coming at you from all 4 limbs. He's a very good Muay Thai fighter on the inside, and when you mix that with an iron chin and an even stronger will to keep fighting through chaos, you get somebody that's going to be there for all 15 or let's say 25 minutes of the fight for as long as you signed up for to go up against. He has pushed many a legendary fighter deep into fights, and his ability to resurge, to bounce back from defeat, go back to the drawing board with his talented coach, Eugene Behrman of City Kickboxing, and recalculate, and come back and figure out how to deal with the younger rising fighters of this lightweight era, because let's not forget, Dan Hooker was a mainstay in that last era where those action legends like Michael Chandler, Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, who's still fighting today, were on top. It really is that distance control with the striking a willingness to get inside, and then having that power and that will to pretty much outlast a great majority of his competition.
I mean, I'm not trying to brag here, BC, but like the UFC on Paramount Plus era is off to an incredible start because you got Patty the Batty Pimblett and Justin Gaethje last week. You get another fan favorite this week in Dan Hooker. What are you thinking about just his capture on the fan base, and do you think the fans, after this one's all said and done, will be happy with the result?
Oh, boy, will they. Look, circle this fight, this co-main event on Saturday's UFC 325 card as guaranteed fireworks, all action for as long as it lasts. And for as much as last weekend's Paramount main event kickoff there with Gaethje and Pimblett being your early fight of the year leader, this one has a great possibility to be close in there. Now, Benoit Saint-Denis is the favorite from a betting standpoint for a reason, but you simply can't count out what Dan Hooker brings to the table. He's so beloved by fans all over the globe because he brings that lunch pail style. He'll fight anyone at any time on any turnaround, and even though he's coming off a particularly tough loss to top contender Arman Tsarukyan last November, he got right back on the horse. The UFC called and he answered, and here he is against another rising lightweight. This division is undergoing a lot of turnover, but Dan Hooker still is a mainstay across the board, and if he's going to give you anything on Saturday, it's going to be everything he's got. And knowing the violent offensive potential that his opponent BSD brings to the table, this should be a gnarly one.
Man, back-to-back bangers to start the era of UFC on Paramount Plus. BC, we certainly appreciate your time setting up the stage. We got to know Dan Hooker a little bit better today here on Paramount Plus. Don't forget, UFC 325 coming your way this weekend live from Australia, Saturday, January 31st. We talked about Dan Hooker, top 10 fight, facing another top 10 fighter in that lightweight division. Of course, the main card also headlined by Volkanovski versus Lopez.
We're back here on HQ, and this Saturday, UFC unleashing another special card, UFC 325 from Sydney, Australia. Volkanovski versus Lopez 2. Last April, Volk defeated Lopez via unanimous decision to win the vacant featherweight championship. Co-main event is a lightweight bout between Dan Hooker and Benoit Saint-Denis. Hooker lost his last fight in November when Arman Tsarukyan submitted him via arm triangle. Benoit Saint-Denis has won 3 straight fights. With that, we bring in CBS Sports combat analyst Brian Campbell and BC. Let's zero in on this emerging French star, Benoit Saint-Denis, going up against Dan Hooker in the co-main event for a lightweight bout. What's been his path to get into the spotlight right now?
I mean, one word to describe it has been violent, and I say that in a fun and entertaining way. All 8 UFC victories for Benoit Saint-Denis have been stoppage wins, and they've taken place within the first 2 rounds. So right off the bat, you know the 30-year-old nickname, the God of War, is here to do one thing, and that's bring the fight and entertain. Now also, by the way, 19 of his 20 fights overall as a pro have not gone the distance. Using that style has caused him some issues for himself. He came into the UFC, ripped off the 5-fight win streak, and then lost back-to-back fights via stoppage to both Dustin Poirier and Renato Moicano. What BSD learned in that was it's going to take more than just toughness and power to win these fights. To his credit, he went out and got a new coach, Nicolas Ott, in Paris. The same coach is rising middleweight contender Nasruddin Imavov, and he adjusted his game somewhat like Justin Gaethje to show that he can bring the craft and the technique, and the results mixed with, of course, that background in power punching and aggression has ripped off 3 consecutive stoppage wins since then. When you're defeating Mauricio Hufi and Beneil Dariush, who are his last 2 wins, in the manner in which he did it, it's showing you that we have a hungry, ready title contender who may just be a live dog in this division. Now, Dan Hooker's a tough out in front of him, but the journey to get here for BSD has just been about refining that craziness, that power, to being a pretty well-rounded threat at the moment.
Yeah, before we get to examining the whole division, one word to describe Saint-Denis' style is finisher, right? Because he's got a 100% finish rate, 5 by KO, 11 by submission. When you watch him fight, BC, what would you say are his biggest strengths?
Oh, his right hand is incredible. Obviously, if the strength that he brings to the table is striking. Let's say that first and foremost. Can he wrestle? Oh yeah, he can do that. And against Mauricio Hufi, he made Hufi like he didn't belong on the mat there, wrestling and grappling him en route to a submission win. But the calling card for Saint-Denis, who, if you're wondering where'd this guy come from, what's his background, he's a former French Special Forces Army sergeant. So we're talking about somebody who loves to mix it up, loves to seek and destroy, and his delivery system to do that is fantastic. Power in both hands, and now that he's fighting a little more controlled, not just sticking his chin out there, which was the problem in those back-to-back stoppage losses, he's mixing in enough defense, enough craft, enough technique overall. You've got a well-rounded fighter who's ready for the top. Look, I'm high on BSD. I understand the 2 losses that set him back of late. I see the recovery and the improvement since then. He brings to the table as fun an offensive repertoire as we see on the regular, and there's just a meanness to the way he fights. He seeks, he destroys. He's yet to even make it to the 3rd round through what? 11 UFC fights up to this point. That tells you something.
Yeah, that is very, very impressive to do. Now, Ilia Topuria, he reigns supreme at the top of the lightweight division. Then you got Sarukian and Oliveira behind him. Where does Saint-Denis fit when you evaluate this lightweight division? Excuse me.
Well, look, I've always felt he had top 5 title-ready talent. It's taking some maneuvering to figure out what is the best of him. I think he's on that path now. He comes in ranked the number 8 lightweight in the world. If he defeats Dan Hooker, and by the way, he's a sizable betting favorite, you are looking at a catapult into that top 5. And to be very fair with you, I think it's a tough out for anyone in this division, even all the way up to Topuria. Obviously, I'd favor the number 2 pound-for-pound fighter and defending lightweight champion because Topuria's boxing is at a level we probably haven't seen before in the UFC. But there really aren't holes to BSD's game, maybe outside of defense at times, in that willingness too much to engage. When he is operating, though, at optimal balance of his skill set, look, I think he's a problem, a big problem in this division. He's going to have to continue to show us that, but that seek and destroy mentality works for him. He's durable as all heck, and that's what you're going to need in the trenches, which is why Justin Gaethje got the better of Paddy Pimblett last Saturday night at UFC 324.
You know, what's interesting or fascinating about this fight coming up against Dan Hooker, BC, is both of them, they love to strike, right? They are aggressive style fighters, so something has to give here. What would you say is at stake for Benoit Saint-Denis here?
I think a top 5 matchup. He's probably 2 wins away from a title shot, to be very fair with you. So this is a big opportunity for him to extend that win streak potentially to 4 straight. We know the amount of stoppages he's delivered, and I have to believe, even with Dan Hooker's durability, this is still going to be 2 trains colliding. And really the key to this fight is, in my opinion, can Hooker withstand the violence of BSD at age 35? If this goes past the 2nd round, which we've never seen Saint-Denis on the UFC level. Great matchup. The one you circle on the fight sheet early as a potential fight of the year contender. Yes, and that is a week removed, of course, from Gaethje versus Pimblett, which is a front runner, no matter if it happened in January or December. But we're going to see thunder on Saturday, and for BSD, the upside is a lot bigger of what he can do with a win. It's crowded at the top. We need Topuria to come back and defend against Gaethje. Of course, there's Max Holloway, Charles Oliveira. Is Conor McGregor coming back? There's a lot going on here at the 155, but BSD is part of the new era and generation who are trying to recycle out all those old action heroes and make a name for himself. And he's got a big opportunity in Sydney on Saturday to do exactly that.
Yeah, like you say, you know, thunder in the octagon. I don't like thunder right side Mother Nature, but inside that octagon, we love it. BC, always appreciate the insight, man. Take care. All right, so again, here is the card. Starts 9 Eastern in Sydney, Australia. Volkanovski against Lopez for the featherweight title bout, and then Hooker and Saint-Denis, the lightweight bout in the co-main event, streaming exclusively on Paramount Plus. And if we get what we got for the first week, first card, we are in for a treat here.